What's going on, guys? Dakota Taylor here, bringing you yet another college football's finest hour podcast. I believe this is podcast number 3, and today we're going to go ahead and talk about this past week in college football. As you know, Rivalry Week. It was a great week in football, week 13, final week of the regular season. It's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. Alright, so to conclude Thanksgiving weekend, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving with your families, great food. But we started out with the Navy-Houston game on Friday morning, and it was a little. It didn't impress me. This Navy-Houston game did not impress me as much as I thought it would. I thought Navy would give them a little more of a game, make it a little more interesting. Then, the game I was looking forward to all day, and I'm sure many others were, was that TCU Baylor game, which actually got delayed at the start because of the weather and all that situation there. But the game did kick off. The game kicked off, and it ended up being a rainy weather game that proved to have a lot less scoring than a lot of people expected. And honestly, I wasn't mad. I was actually pretty happy. I felt like this game exposed what football really is. It showed you, it's not always the inside dome turf elements that they're making football out to be today. It's, wow, we actually have to play on wet grass and the mud and get a little dirty. That's football, baby. That's what it is right there. And TCU and Baylor showed you that the weather does play a factor in each game. The ground was muddy. The ball was wet. Receivers were dropping balls. It was a great game to watch for any football fan. You don't even have to be a real fan of football. It was entertaining. Now, of course, TCU ended up winning this game in double overtime. It was going back and forth throughout the game. Not a lot of offense. Started out like it was going to be a shootout, like everyone anticipated, and then the scoring faded off. Heading overtime, and Baylor went on the board real quick, and then TCU were kind of back, and TCU came back, and Baylor just couldn't score. I mean, TCU held them. They did what they had to do. It was a great game, though. Shout out to both those teams, man. It gave us something to watch Friday after Thanksgiving, and I believe it lived up to the hype. I mean, you don't always get a double overtime game, so I'm not complaining. Saturday morning, we started off the games with the classic Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. Probably the best rivalry in college football today. Is it an arguable? I personally don't think so. I mean, it's a great rivalry. Anyone wants to watch it. I probably just messed up saying rivalry again. I don't care. I'm going to keep going. Either way, I expected a much better game. I actually expected Michigan to come out with a W. I thought Jake Rudock, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, was going to show up a lot better than he did that game. I thought he'd play a much bigger factor. It seemed like Michigan's offense was there for half the drive, and then it would fall off, and then they kind of looked like they were doing some on defense, but then Urban Meyer would call up a read option and ruin everything that Michigan had going on defense, and JT Barrett and Ezekiel Elliott were running, they were communicating, they were rolling. The Buckeyes were killing it. I really wasn't expecting that coming off that loss against Michigan State. I'll give it to them. You guys got me on that one. I'm sorry for those Ohio State fans I offended not picking them. I actually called Michigan big. I really thought Michigan was going to come out of there with the W. The next intriguing matchup I thought we had throughout that day, another huge rivalry. Alabama, Auburn, War Eagle, Roll Tide, whatever side you're on. It was still a very anticipated matchup, no matter the records. It doesn't matter what the records are, because no matter what, the players are going to play as hard as they can. There's both Alabama schools. I'm sure many of these players know each other from high school. Might even went to the same high schools, just chose different routes. One of them wants to go War Eagle, other one chooses Roll Tide. I mean, whatever one chooses. Either way, it ended up being a pretty nice game until it got to the fourth quarter. Then I think Alabama really showed that they were the better team. But a thing I'd like to point out from this game is Will Muschamp on that Auburn sideline. Did you guys see him? He was getting outrageous over there. He was screaming at the refs. He actually got that 15-yard penalty, ended up being a 30-yard play for Alabama. It was crazy. Will Muschamp, you gotta know better than that, man. How old are you? That's all I'm gonna say. I'm 17. I'm 16 years old, almost 17. You just know not to get in the face of a ref like that. You're being looked at possibly to get another job as a head coach. But right there, if I was a school and I saw you flipping out like that, I wouldn't want you representing my school. He showed no class right there. No class at all. Sure, maybe it was a bad call, but move on with it. Move on with your day. Keep on going. That's childish. The next game I'd like to talk about was this Clemson South Carolina game. Going into it, I really didn't expect much out of it. I thought Clemson was going to walk away with it. It wasn't going to be much of a task. Of course, it is a rivalry, and you never know what to expect, but I was really feeling confident that the Tigers were going to pull this one out with no problem. But I was wrong. South Carolina actually showed that they do have a little fight left in them. And this is a really bad South Carolina team who kept up with supposedly the number one team in the nation. It kind of makes you rethink this whole ranking process and what these guys are saying. We'll talk about that another day. But South Carolina did, in a way, expose this team. And I feel that if this team is really number one, they should have handled the South Carolina team with ease. I just feel that Deshaun Watson should have went on. I mean, when Clemson needed to, they got it done. But still, the number one team playing a mediocre South Carolina, you expect a little more out of them. The next game I'd like to talk about is that Notre Dame-Stanford game. It was a tough loss for me personally. I feel like connected to that Irish team as if I was a player. I'm a die-hard Notre Dame fan. It was a tough loss to take. But it was a great game. I didn't see any crazy calls I didn't disagree with. I thought it was a fair, played-out game. I knew going into it Stanford wasn't going to be easy. Stanford was kind of the favorite going into it, with Notre Dame having so many injuries and losing so many stars. But it was a great game all around, and if that's the way we have to lose, hats off to Stanford, man. That was a great game to watch, even if, of course, we're going to go back to this reference. Even if you're not a fan of football, it's still enjoyable. Both of these teams showed what you'd like to see out of every college football team in the nation. They showed you their offensive talent. They showed you the defense when they step up. And the kicker showed you, the game-winning kick all comes down to this. And it happened. Stanford got the kick. It went through the uprights, and we can't help it. We'll have to move on. We got next year, baby. Watch out for the Irish next year. Sorry if my Irish bias sticks out on some of these podcasts. Huge Notre Dame fan. Moving on, and finally, the last game I'd like to talk about, and I know there's many others that were intriguing to maybe others of you that listen to this podcast, but these are the ones that stuck out of my eye. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State didn't really show up. I felt like it would be a much closer game than what it was on the scoreboard. I personally, of course, was cheering for Oklahoma State in case we would have beaten Stanford and Oklahoma would have lost, then Notre Dame would be in a better setup. But that's out of scenario now. We don't have to talk about that. We're going to talk about the game as is and how it turned out. Oklahoma looked like the best team in college football this past Saturday, in my opinion. They went on that field and they played football. And they played it better than the other team. It's that simple. But they did a lot better than the other team and made themselves look a lot better than any other team in college football. There's no other way to put it. I mean, when you put up 58 points against the Oklahoma State defense, which I thought was a really good D going into it, Baker Mayfield, he just lit them up. And that, maybe it's the two running back tandem as well. Wow. That's all I got to say about that game. It was, I guess if you're a Sooner fan, it turned out exactly how you wanted to. I feel, you made a great last case for yourself since you do not have to play in a conference championship game being in the Big 12. We'll talk about that later. But I feel like you guys left off what you needed to leave off for the committee to judge you guys on. You should, without a doubt, the Sooners should be in. Huge win for the Sooners. And I believe the Sooners going into this playoff, depending on what happens with the conference championships, is the best team in college football. Name a team that's better right now. Go ahead and I'll comment back with why I think the Sooners are better. But this is my opinion, and you can have yours, and I'll have mine, and that's why you gotta love college football. Thank you guys for listening again. This is the third broadcast, or should I say podcast, that I've had on this channel. We're getting the views up there a little bit. I'm just doing what I love. If you could help by throwing a thumbs up, subscribing, sharing with your friends, whatever you do, whatever social media site you work with, whatever it is. Thanks a lot again for listening to my rants, and thanks. This has been college football's finest hour, and I, Dakota Taylor, am out of here.